Model stole the billionaire from his wife, but she crashed their wedding in a limousine with quadruplets. Hi, my beautiful family. I speak to you today with a heart full of love, but also with truth. Our channel is built on your strength, your love, and your support. Every story I write is written with tears, with passion, and with prayer for each one of you. But my family, I see the channel going down because many forget to like, many forget to comment. It hurts me because it feels like my hard work is left unseen. I ask you today, not just as a creator, but as your brother who truly loves you, please, whenever you watch, give your love back. A simple like, a simple comment keeps this family alive, keeps our light shining, and gives me the power to bring you more and more beautiful stories. May God bless every woman in this family with honor, with dignity, and with unshakable strength. May every man be blessed with wisdom and respect. May our children rise higher than mountains, and may every home be filled with endless love and peace. Amen. If your heart is true, write present. If your love is real, write in the comments where you're watching from. Picture this: a ballroom glowing with chandeliers, the kind of wedding so extravagant it could have been staged for royalty. Cameras flash, guests whisper, and at the center of it all he stands, the billionaire, polished suit, confident smirk, arm wrapped around his new bride, a model draped in diamonds that caught the light like fire. Everything about that moment screamed perfection. At least, that's what they thought, because just as the officiant raised his hand, ready to begin, the roar of an engine cut through the music. Heads turned, the doors to a gleaming white limousine swung open, and out stepped a woman no one expected, his ex-wife, the woman he had tossed aside like yesterday's news. And she wasn't alone. Clutching her hands, 4 children followed, matching suits, tiny dresses, wide eyes blinking at the glittering chaos. 4 children no one in that room even knew existed. Gasps, shattered whispers. Paparazzi bulbs went into a frenzy. The billionaire's smug confidence drained from his face in real time. And the bride, that smile froze like porcelain about to crack. Now, this isn't your average case of jilted ex crashed the party. This was deeper. This was betrayal carved into the bones of a 10-year marriage. Years of loyalty traded for glamour. Ambition that chewed through vows like they were nothing more than scraps of paper. Everyone had underestimated the wife. They saw her as quiet, soft-spoken, resigned to her fate. What they didn't realize, she wasn't finished. She wasn't broken. She had been patient. And patience has a way of sharpening into something far more dangerous than rage. Because what came next wasn't just revenge, it was precision. A masterclass in reclaiming dignity, in rewriting the ending to a story everyone else thought they had already closed. And trust me, once you hear how she turned their fairytale wedding into a scandal they'd never recover from, you'll understand why this story belongs here. And before we dive headfirst into the chaos, quick favor. If you love stories where justice isn't just served, but plated on silver and delivered with the engine still running, make sure you hit that subscribe button. These scripts take hours of writing, editing, and a little emotional recovery from second-hand rage. Your support, it honestly means the world. So, ready to see what happens when the underestimated wife shows up with the ultimate trump card? Let's rewind. Before the headlines, before the limousines and the chaos, there was just her, the wife, loyal, graceful, the kind of woman people never noticed until she wasn't there anymore. She wasn't flashy. She didn't need to be. While her husband charmed investors with slick smiles and handshakes, she was the one who steadied the ship. Bills got paid because of her spreadsheets. Dinner parties sparkled because of her planning. When deals fell apart, she was the one whispering calm in his ear, reminding him not to give up. You could say she was the scaffolding holding up the skyscraper he was busy decorating for the world to see. But here's the thing about scaffolding. People forget it exists until they try to tear it down. To the public, their marriage was enviable. Photographs of them at charity galas, boarding yachts, smiling for glossy magazine spreads. He was the self-made billionaire with charisma. She was the elegant wife at his side. People ate it up. They looked like a fairy tale in motion. But behind closed doors, Cracks had already started to show. He worked longer hours, claimed he was networking. Phone calls that used to end with "I love you" turned into "I'm busy, we'll talk later." She noticed the distance, felt the chill in their once warm home, but she brushed it off, because when you've invested years in building a life together, it's easier to patch cracks than admit the whole foundation might be rotting. She remembered the early days, the nights when they sat on the floor of their tiny apartment, eating takeout from paper boxes, dreaming about the future. He'd tell her, "When I make it, you'll never have to worry again." And she believed him. She believed in them dot, and she did more than believe. She worked. She was there when the bank rejected their first business loan. She was there when his big ideas looked more like financial sinkholes. She was there, holding her breath during every gamble, every risk, praying it would pay off. And when it finally did, when the money came rolling in, when the suits got sharper, the cars flashier, the champagne colder, that's when the shift happened. Suddenly, she was less a partner and more a prop, smiling beside him, nodding politely at dinners, fading into the background of a life she helped create. She tried to remind him of their roots. Late at night, she'd say softly, "Do you remember us, before all of this?" He'd sigh, roll over, and mutter, "Things change. Don't overthink it." But she knew. She knew she was slipping into the shadows of her own marriage. Still, she stayed, not out of weakness, but out of loyalty. Because she believed that kind of loyalty still meant something. She told herself, "He'll remember who was there in the beginning." She clung to that thought, even as the evidence piled higher that he was remembering someone else entirely. And yet, despite the distance, despite the ache of invisibility, she carried herself with quiet grace. No tantrums, no scenes, just a steady presence. That's the thing people missed about her. She wasn't loud, but she was constant. And maybe that's why her betrayal hurt so much. Not because she was naive, or because she didn't see the warning signs, but because she had given everything time, energy, years she could never get back. She built him. She built them. And when it finally paid off, when the empire stood tall and gleaming, she found herself pushed to the sidelines, forgotten, like a draft no one bothered to finish. And honestly, haven't we all felt a version of that? Being the one behind the curtain, pulling the strings, only to watch someone else step out into the spotlight. So let me ask you, have you ever felt like the person who built everything, only to be forgotten when it finally paid off? Let me know, because that was her reality. And soon, she'd find out just how replaceable he thought she really was. But what he didn't know, you don't erase someone like her, not easily, and certainly not without consequences. She didn't just appear. She arrived like a glittering storm. The model was everything the cameras loved: tall, flawless skin, legs that seemed to run forever. But what people missed, at least at first, was the calculation behind her smile. She wasn't just beautiful, she was ambitious, and she knew exactly where to aim that ambition, straight at a billionaire's heart. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. He was restless. Success, money, power, none of it felt as intoxicating as it once did. His wife's steady presence, once a comfort, now felt like background noise to his ego. Enter the model. She laughed at every joke, touched his arm just a little too long, and spoke the language he craved. Admiration. Soon, he was hooked. Late nights that used to be business meetings now carried a different edge. His wife noticed, of course, the cologne she didn't recognize, the way his phone never left his hand, the sudden habit of showering the second he got home, as if to wash away something more than the city's grit. She asked him once, gently, "Is there someone else?" He didn't even deny it, just smirked and said, "You're imagining things," gaslighting wrapped in arrogance. But the truth couldn't stay hidden for long. Not when paparazzi caught him at a fashion gala, arm around the very woman he swore was just a colleague. Not when tabloids plastered photos of their whispered conversations, their too close poses, their champagne toasts that looked suspiciously like foreplay. The betrayal wasn't quiet, it was a headline. And once the press got their claws in, there was no going back. The wife watched as articles painted her as the outdated spouse, while the model was crowned the glamorous new queen at his side. It was brutal. Imagine building an empire and then seeing your replacement paraded across every magazine cover, while you're reduced to a footnote. And then came the ultimate blow. One evening, he sat across from her, at the dinner table, her favorite meal sitting untouched between them, and cleared his throat. He didn't soften it, didn't bother with compassion. He just said, "I'm filing for divorce. I've decided to marry her." That was it. 10 years of shared battles and victories, dismissed in a single sentence, like it had all been a temporary arrangement, and she was nothing more than a placeholder until the real prize came along. She didn't cry in front of him. She refused to give him that satisfaction. Instead, she set down her fork, pushed back her chair, and said quietly, "Then I guess you've made your choice." And she walked away, but inside, her heart shattered into 1,000 jagged pieces. Still, she carried herself with dignity, even as lawyers circled and gossip sites picked apart her life. The divorce was public, messy, humiliating. He strutted around with his model, feeding the press lines about new beginnings, while conveniently erasing the woman who had been there from the start. And the model, she basked in the attention. Every photo op, every designer dress, every carefully staged smile was another reminder of how completely she thought she'd won. But here's the thing about winning. It's only temporary if the game isn't over. And the wife, she wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. Because while the world was busy crowning the model the new queen, the real storm, the one nobody saw coming, was quietly gathering strength. So let me ask you, would you ever forgive a partner who left you so publicly? Be honest. Because she didn't forgive. She planned. The divorce was a spectacle, not the quiet, behind closed doors type. No, this one was fed to the press like raw meat to hungry wolves. Every filing, every negotiation, every leaked statement made its way onto gossip blogs and business tabloids. He strutted into court with his model on his arm, smiling for cameras as if this was another red carpet event. She, meanwhile, walked in alone, head high, wearing simple black. No entourage, no theatrics, just quiet dignity. The lawyers went for the throat. His team painted her as irrelevant, a woman who contributed nothing, someone who should be grateful for whatever settlement scraps she was offered. It was cruel, and it was calculated, reporters whispered as she sat there, hands folded, never once raising her voice. Headlines followed. * billionaire moves on. * ex-wife fades into obscurity. * to the world. She looked like a broken woman, defeated, forgotten. But silence can be deceptive, because while he flaunted his new life, she let them believe the narrative. She let them think she was fragile, retreating, finished. And in doing so, she disappeared from the tabloids' radar, out of sight, out of mind. Exactly where she wanted to be. At home, though, the weight was crushing. Imagine watching years of loyalty reduced to footnotes and legal jargon. She'd sit at the dining table empty now, stripped of laughter, and stare at the documents spread across the wood. 10 years of marriage summarized in bullet points, like receipts for a transaction. Friends urged her to speak out. "You should tell your side," they said. "Don't let him control the story." But she shook her head. Not yet, because she knew something they didn't. Noise fades. Scandals burn fast and bright, then vanish. But patience leaves an ember smoldering. The billionaire mistook her silence for surrender. The model mocked her, dropping smug little comments in interviews about fresh chapters and being the real partner he always needed. The wife read them all and smiled to herself. Let them play queen and king for now. Thrones built on betrayal don't stand for long. And here's what I find remarkable. She didn't lash out. She didn't break. She didn't try to one-up them in the press. Instead, she rebuilt quietly. She focused on her children, her home, her peace. Each day of silence wasn't weakness, it was a sharpening. A slow, deliberate sharpening. Weeks bled into months. The world forgot about her, shifting attention to the happy couple, their lavish vacations, their extravagant engagement party. Every step broadcast as proof that they'd won. But here's the truth. She was still there, watching, waiting, measuring, every crack in their carefully curated facade. Everyone thought she disappeared, but she was only waiting, and that's where I'll leave you for now with a question. If this happened to you, if someone erased you so publicly, so cruelly, would you plot your comeback, or would you walk away? The wedding was the kind you'd expect from a billionaire desperate to prove he had won. The venue, a cathedral draped in white silk and gold accents, chandeliers dripping with crystals, rows of roses so fresh you could still smell the dew. Paparazzi swarmed outside, their flashes creating a strobe against the polished marble steps. Inside, guests fanned themselves with gilded programs, whispering about the bride's dress, the groom's fortune, the spectacle of it all. He stood at the altar, smug in his custom-tailored suit. The model, his new bride, glided down the aisle, and the gown, worth more than most people's homes. Cameras devoured every second, every smile, every stolen glance. To the outside world, it was perfect, untouchable. But perfection has a way of cracking. The priest cleared his throat, the hush falling heavy. The vows were about to begin. The room leaned forward as if holding a collective breath. And then, like a scene ripped straight from a movie, the distant hum of an engine cut through the silence. A limousine, long and sleek, rolled up to the cathedral steps. Its polished black body gleamed under the midday sun, so out of place against the sea of white. Heads turned, guests craned their necks. Even the paparazzi froze, unsure whether this was part of the show or something entirely unscripted. Ex-Pfeed driver stepped out, moved to the rear door, and pulled it open. And then she appeared, the ex-wife, not broken, not forgotten, not the fragile woman the tabloids had mocked months ago. No, she stepped out in elegance, draped in a gown that whispered power with every fold of silk. Her hair swept back, her chin lifted, her presence commanding in a way no diamond tiara could match. But she wasn't alone. In each hand, she held two small ones. 4 children emerged, stepping carefully onto the stone steps. Quadruplets, her children, his children. The gasp that rippled through the crowd was almost physical, like a wave crashing against the walls. Guests clutched their pearls, their jaws dropping. Cameras exploded with light. Reporters shouted questions, their voices clashing with the sudden chaos. Inside, the groom's face went pale. The bride stiffened, her perfect smile faltering. And for the first time all day, the performance cracked. The ex-wife didn't rush. She didn't flinch. She simply walked forward, each step echoing against the cathedral floor as the door swung wide open before her. The children dressed neatly, their expressions calm, followed like a chorus of truth. No one could silence. Whispers spread like wildfire. Asterisk, are those his? Asterisk, asterisk, quadruplets. How long? Asterisk, asterisk, why didn't anyone know? Asterisk, the priest tried to restore order. Please, everyone, let's. But even he couldn't compete with the storm unraveling in real time. The ex-wife met her husband's eyes at last. For a moment, the entire world seemed to shrink to just the two of them. He shifted, visibly rattled, his jaw tightening as if to hold onto the scraps of control slipping through his fingers. And then, without raising her voice, she spoke. "Did you forget to mention," she said, her tone cool, deliberate, "that you already had a family?" The room erupted. Guests gasped, some turning to each other, others fixing their eyes on the groom. They'd been waiting for this twist all along. Cameras caught every second, flashes sparking like lightning across storm clouds. The bride. She took a step back, her grip on her bouquet tightened, knuckles white. Suddenly, she wasn't the star of the show. She was the footnote. The groom tried to stammer out an explanation. "This isn't, it's not." But his voice was swallowed by the noise, by the undeniable evidence standing at the ex-wife's side. The children said nothing. They didn't need to. Their presence alone was louder than any scandal the tabloids could dream up. Proof, flesh and blood. The empire he built on betrayal suddenly didn't look so untouchable. The ex-wife didn't gloat. She didn't shout. She simply turned, guiding the children to the front row, as though she belonged there, and she did. Because she always had. And here's what I love most about this moment. She didn't crash the wedding with rage. She arrived with truth. A truth he thought he could bury, hidden away until it no longer mattered. But truth has a way of arriving always on time. The ceremony never recovered. The bride's family whispered furiously in the pews. The groom's investors, yes, some of them were in attendance, looked like they were already calculating the fallout. And the once silent ex-wife, she didn't need to say another word. Her entrance had spoken enough. By the time the limo pulled away later that afternoon, the story wasn't about a glamorous wedding anymore. It was about the woman who returned, the wife everyone underestimated, the mother of the children he pretended didn't exist, and the world. Oh, they were hooked. Because nothing sells faster than a lie undone in broad daylight. So let me throw this one to you. What's the most dramatic wedding interruption you've ever heard of? Spill it in the comments, I need to know. The cathedral had been buzzing before. Now, it was chaos. Reporters were already halfway down the aisle, microphones out, shouting questions over the music that had long since died. Guests craned their necks, phones held high, recording every second. The ex-wife's quiet revelation that these 4 children belonged to him wasn't just gossip. It was dynamite. The billionaire froze at the altar, shoulders stiff, eyes darting like a man suddenly caged. He tried to summon that same easy charm he'd built his empire on, but it wasn't working. The truth was standing right in front of him, in the form of 4 small faces with his same jawline, his same unmistakable eyes. Whispers turned into pointed stares. Someone in the second row muttered, "They look exactly like him." Another hissed, "Quadruplets. How do you even hide something like that?" The model bride felt the heat too. Her hand slipped from his arm. Her smile, frozen for the cameras, had collapsed into something brittle and sour. She looked at him like she didn't recognize the man she thought she'd married. And that's when the ex-wife delivered the line that made the world stop. "They're yours," she said, her voice calm, carrying easily over the din. Every single one of them. The gasp this time wasn't scattered. It was unified, sharp, collective, almost theatrical. The crowd erupted into a frenzy. Some guests covered their mouths. Others scrambled to text friends or blast it out on social media. Within minutes, the headlines were already uploading. Billionaire groom exposed at the altar, secret children revealed. The priest lowered his book. He looked like he wanted to sink into the marble floor. This wasn't a wedding anymore. This was a reckoning. The billionaire's voice cracked as he finally spoke. "This isn't what you think, but what else could it be?" His excuses, once gold-plated, now sounded like cheap tin. The press wasn't listening. The guests weren't listening. Even the model, who had once hung on his every word, was staring at him like she'd just realized she'd stepped into quicksand. And here's the thing about secrets. Once one cracks open, the rest come rushing out. Whispers turn to questions. If he lied about this, what else is he hiding? Did the model know? Was the divorce even legal? The perfect image he and his bride had spent months curating began to splinter right there in real time. The ex-wife didn't gloat. She didn't need to. She just placed a steady hand on the shoulder of the eldest boy and let silence do what it does best: destroy reputations more thoroughly than shouting ever could. The model finally snapped, turning on the billionaire in full view of the cameras. "You told me you never had children." Her voice dripped with venom, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You said you wanted a fresh start, that you weren't dragging any baggage into our marriage." He flinched. The word baggage hung in the air like a curse, because standing right, there were 4 little souls who were never baggage at all. They were family, blood, his legacy. The press ate it up. Flashbulbs strobed, recording every twist of her expression, every flicker of panic on his. And suddenly, the power shifted. The billionaire wasn't in control anymore. The ex-wife was. Now, here's the question. Should she reveal everything? Every ugly truth she'd swallowed in silence during the marriage, every betrayal she'd endured? Or should she hold back, let him twist in the wind with just this one brutal reveal? Because you and I both know sometimes the most dangerous weapon isn't spilling every secret. It's letting people imagine the ones you asterisk might asterisk still be keeping dots as the ex-wife stood there, calm and unshaken. That's exactly what she did. She left the silence heavy, unbroken, daring the world to fill in the blanks. The billionaire stammered again, but his words fell flat. His empire built on polished appearances and carefully managed narratives was crumbling faster than he could patch the holes. And the model, she wasn't standing by her man. She was inching away from him, bouquet clutched like a lifeline, eyes darting toward the exit. One wedding, one limo, one sentence and suddenly the fairy tale was dead. And yet, the ex-wife wasn't finished, not by a long shot. But that's for the next act. So let me put it to you. If this were you, standing in her shoes, would you expose everything you know right then and there? Or would you keep some secrets tucked away, knowing they'll sting harder when revealed later? Hit the poll line, curious where you stand. The model was the first to snap. Her voice cut through the cathedral, sharp and venomous. You humiliated me, she hissed at the billionaire, jabbing a manicured finger into his chest. The cameras loved it, every glare, every tremble in her voice, every perfectly painted nail shaking with rage. She didn't care who was watching anymore. The fairy tale had shattered, and she wanted the world to know she'd been deceived too. The billionaire tried to smooth it over, plastering on that corporate smile he'd perfected for boardrooms and interviews. Please, darling, he muttered, keeping his voice low but failing to hide the panic in his eyes. This isn't the place. We'll fix this. I can fix this. But his words were hollow. Everyone could see it. The press swarmed closer, microphones stretched out like weapons. Guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats, caught between scandal and spectacle. The whole event felt less like a wedding and more like a public trial. And the groom, he looked guilty, not just of hiding children, but of betraying the image he'd sold so carefully. Meanwhile, the ex-wife didn't say a word. She didn't need to. She stood with her children at her side, calm, poised, unflinching. Not once did she raise her voice or lower herself to the chaos unraveling around her. Her silence said it all. Asterisk, I don't need to scream. The truth already speaks louder than I ever could. Asterisk, and honestly, that's what made it devastating. The model ranted on, spitting accusations, demanding answers. The billionaire flailed between soothing her and denying the obvious, his carefully curated world collapsing in front of his own eyes. The press captured every stumble, every contradiction, but the ex-wife, she just adjusted the bow on her daughter's dress. She leaned down to whisper something gentle, something reassuring. The children didn't cry. They didn't even flinch. They were steady, because asterisk she asterisk was steady. And in that moment, the contrast was undeniable. On one side of the altar, chaos, shouting, and desperation. On the other, dignity, composure, and undeniable truth. Sometimes, the loudest statement is simply showing up. That was her power. She hadn't stormed in screaming. She hadn't ripped the veil from the bride's head or demanded vengeance in front of the cameras. She had arrived, elegant and unbothered, with living proof of the life he'd tried to erase. And that was enough to topple his kingdom. The billionaire looked at her finally, really looked at her. For the first time all night, his mask slipped completely. His lips parted, but no words came. He knew. Everyone knew. His silence confirmed what his lies had tried to bury. The ex-wife straightened, met his gaze, and gave the faintest smile. Not triumphant, not cruel, just finished. And that was the last nail in the coffin, because here's the truth. Shouting gets attention, but silence shakes people to their core. She turned then, taking the children's hands, guiding them out as calmly as she had entered. The cameras followed her like she was the true bride that day, the true center of power, and maybe, in some poetic way, she was, behind her. The billionaire and his new bride crumbled under the weight of exposure. But she didn't glance back once. She didn't need to. If you were in her place, would you have spoken out in that moment? Or would you have let silence do the work for you? Let me know in the comments. Time has a way of telling the truth louder than any headline ever could. In the weeks after the wedding fiasco, The billionaire and his model bride became front-page news for all the wrong reasons. Tabloids feasted on the scandal. Secret children revealed at altar. From runway to runaway bride. Every headline more brutal than the last. Their carefully curated love story, once glossy and enviable, was now shredded under the weight of public scrutiny. Business partners distanced themselves. Stockholders whispered. Charities quietly withdrew invitations. Because when your empire is built on image, perception is everything, and his had cracked beyond repair. The model, once his prized jewel, didn't shine so brightly anymore. Behind the staged smiles and forced appearances, rumors of fights and screaming matches leaked. People began to wonder, had she married a man, or just a scandal with a bank account? Meanwhile, the ex-wife, well, her story took a very different turn. She hadn't chased headlines. She hadn't given interviews or sold her side to the highest bidder. She didn't need to. Her silence had already spoken volumes. And because of that, something remarkable happened. The world began to see her. The same woman who had once been overlooked, dismissed as just a wife, was now respected. Invitations arrived, not because of who she'd married, but because of who she was: graceful, steady, and strong enough to walk through fire without losing her composure. She poured her energy into her children, into building a life that wasn't defined by the billionaire's shadow. The quadruplets became her anchor, her proof, her undeniable truth. Each one carried a piece of their father's legacy, yes, but more importantly, they carried her resilience. They were living reminders that she had given more to that marriage than he ever could admit. I'll be honest, there was something poetic about it. While he scrambled to repair a broken facade, she quietly thrived. While he fended off scandals, she created stability. And while he grew smaller under the microscope of public shame, she grew larger in dignity. Friends who had once pitied her now admired her. Even strangers rooted for her, because in her calm, deliberate silence, she had delivered the most devastating revenge of all. She didn't have to destroy him. He'd done that to himself. One evening, months later, she attended a charity gala. Not on his arm, not as anyone's plus one. She arrived on her own, stunning in a gown that turned heads, the kind of confidence that couldn't be bought or faked. Cameras flashed not for scandal, but for admiration. And when she smiled, it wasn't for them, it was for herself. That's the thing about revenge. We expect it to be fire, fury, explosive confrontations. But sometimes, it's the calm, undeniable reality of thriving when someone expected you to crumble. She didn't need to scream. She didn't need to burn it all down. She just had to live, and living well became the sharpest blade of all. The billionaire and his model could try to plaster over their cracks, but everyone had already seen what lay beneath. And the ex-wife, she didn't need to explain herself anymore. Her life had become the proof, the legacy, the answer. Because in the end, revenge wasn't in the limousine. It wasn't in the headlines or even the whispers of the crowd. Revenge was in the quiet, steady march forward, 4 small hands in each of hers, walking toward a future no scandal could take away. Revenge isn't always fire and fury. Sometimes it's calm, undeniable reality. If you were in her shoes, would you have chosen the same path, quiet strength and dignity, or gone for fire and spectacle? Let me know in the comments. And just like that, she won. Not with shouting matches, not with dramatic takedowns or fiery speeches. Her victory was quieter, sharper, etched into the way she carried herself long after the storm passed. The billionaire and his model tried to spin the story, but the world had already seen the cracks. Every interview, every staged photo op, it all felt desperate. Meanwhile, the wife never had to lift a finger. Her dignity did the talking. That's the beauty of patience. It waits, it watches, and when the moment comes, it doesn't need to scream. It just steps into the light, calm and undeniable. Strategy, after all, isn't about striking first. It's about knowing you'll be the last one standing. Her silence was her strength. Her children were her legacy, and her presence, simply showing up, unbothered, was the loudest statement of all. Sometimes, revenge doesn't look like fire. It looks like peace. It looks like thriving when someone swore you couldn't, And honestly, that kind of revenge cuts deeper than anything else. So, what do you think? Would you have handled it with the same quiet grace or gone for a fireworks? If you found this story as wild and satisfying as I did, hit like, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Every bit of support helps us keep bringing these insane Reddit tales to life, and trust me, the next one is just as jaw-dropping.